Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we begin the long and arduous task of making the mold. First and foremost, if you want to sculpt like I sculpt, or at least in a similar fashion, check out my Patreon page. There you can find all kinds of good stuff, rewards, and anything. So if you'd like what you're seeing here and would like to learn or support me in my endeavors, follow the link in the description below. So the way these videos will be split up is the hands, the silicone, the mold, and the opening of the mold. I decided to do it this way because trying to tell this story is a bit difficult. There's many things happening at once, and I would have had to jump back and forth between very different subjects, and I think it would have been confusing. But in this fashion, I think it will make a lot more sense. The silicone I'm using is a putty silicone, as you can probably see, from Blue Star Silicones, and the name of the silicone is Blue Sil RTV 3325P. Now, if you're in the US, Smooth On has a similar product called Poyo Putty, I think, and there's also Resilpalm silicone molding putty, and they're supposed to be similar as well. But I've never tried them, so don't take my word for it. But I know that they can be ordered from the Complete Sculptor in New York City, which is the best sculpture store in the world, by the way. Please come at me with any viable challenge. So I'll get into more technical stuff about the material on the next two videos, just in case you're wondering why I'm skipping over a lot of stuff here. I started off applying silicone to the hands and arms because they will dry out the fastest. Thin parts on a sculpture made of water-based clay will dry out rather quickly, especially if there's air conditioning being blasted into your studio, which I'm very thankful for, by the way. At the time I was making this mold, it was probably around 40 Celsius or 100 Fahrenheit degrees outside, so air conditioning was much appreciated. I'm very careful on this first layer because any dings in the sculpture will have to be fixed or become a permanent feature of the sculpture. The hands are very tough to get to with a lot of upside down work being needed, and the fingers are very fragile as well. So I just try to take my time and I don't rush. I mix small amounts of silicone and only do a small part at a time. If I mix a big batch of silicone, it can get a little firm by the end of the batch, and this is not good when doing small fragile parts like the hands. Or even when you're doing just the first layer and want to capture detail, you want to avoid the silicone setting up on you while you're applying it. I don't know why, but working upside down like this always makes me feel sick. Like I'm squishing my intestines around or something like that, which I'm sure is very healthy. As you can see, I've covered the whole sculpture in silicone, but I'll talk about that in the next video. The small piece of plastic where the hands meet the face are a major part of the grand plan. I left this part where the hands and the face meet uncovered. Once I've added all 3 layers of silicone and 1 piece of the mother mold, I will cut the arms off, and because they touch the face, I need to access where they touch when I cut. The mother mold will support both hands as they get cut, as the armature is not attached where the hands meet. This is why I needed to do it this way in the first place, because the hands would not be strong enough to support themselves if I cut the arms off before making the piece of the mother mold. I'm happy I did it this way, however, as keeping the hands and fingers flexible while sculpting is paramount for me. Okay, so we're on to the walls. The walls are there to separate the two pieces of the mother mold and to separate where the arms are going to be cut off from the body. I guess I forgot to start filming parts of this because I'm missing some angles and some moments, but bear with me, I'm trying my very best, or at least close to it. I start off building up the wall using pink catalyzer. The silicone is gray and the catalyzer gives it the color. The pink catalyzer smells nice, like strawberry, and the reason I use it is because it sets up very fast. So this means I can quickly build up the height of my wall. If I had to build it up with yellow catalyzer, it would take a long time, and I would have had to do incremental steps to build it up. The pink catalyzer lets me get the walls done in a few hours, maybe half a day, instead of spending a day or even 2 days on them. And it saves me a lot of sitting around waiting as well. If you build up the silicone too thick, it will start to sag under its own weight, and you won't get the walls where you want them to be. Once the silicone sags, it tends to start setting up slower for whatever reason. I guess if silicone is moving, it sets up slower or something. Someone with in-depth knowledge of chemistry and silicone can let me know what's going on here. Once the wall is built up, I cover the pink catalyzer with a thin layer of yellow catalyzer. This makes the mold looks nicer and unified, but more importantly, it increases the functionality of the mold. Having nice square walls help the mother mold register better. The mold lasts longer as shrinkage won't affect it as much. You can imagine if the silicone shrunk a little bit and it had a lot of lumps and bumps, the mother mold would have the same lumps and bumps and they wouldn't register together anymore. And that is my reasoning at least. Maybe it doesn't matter as much as I have imagined, but I do it this way. Once the walls are set up, I can start the resin mother mold. It's actually a material called hydro resin. I'm not entirely sure of the brand, but the bucket says hydro resin. So it's more like a super hard plaster catalyzed by an acrylic liquid instead of water and reinforced with fiberglass instead of burlap. It's a lot stronger than plaster and it weighs a little less. Similar products elsewhere in the world would be aqua resin or jesmonite. For me, the most important part, however, is the strength. I've had too many big plaster mother molds misbehave during transport, and it's so frustrating to work so hard on a sculpture only to have a mold act up on you. Obviously, it was me who made some kind of mistake and didn't make the mold right. You know, the mold is benign and doesn't really do anything on its own, but either way. This is a lot more expensive than just plaster, but I think it's worth it in the end. It saves me a lot of hassle, so it's worth it for me at least. I did the mother mold on the bottom part of the hands and arms first to support them when I cut them off. The top part of the mother mold I made once the arms were cut off. And again, I'm working upside down. So doing it this way lets me access the chin where I need to cut through the clay to separate the head from the head, but it makes sure the arms has enough support so that they don't bend or buckle when I cut them. And I'll talk a lot more in depth about the resin and how it works in the video on the mother mold. Okay, so we're at the moment of truth. Did it all work? Well, of course it did. I recruited some help from fellow sculptors Tor Larsen and Octavio Palomino. Having a pair of helping hands is really necessary when doing something like this. Before they showed up, I cut through the silicone so we could get the saw into the clay and into the armature wire. Now the clay cuts real easy, but the armature wire can be a bit tricky. We used a saw with many small teeth. I think it's supposed to be used on metal, but who knows really. It worked anyways. The hard part is making sure the saw doesn't dig into the silicone, so you have to hold the silicone away from the saw. Once you cut one arm, you need to really make sure it doesn't move much and cut the second one. In general, you want to have as little shaking happening as possible. And as you can see, the arms came off easy enough. Everything worked out, and I put them on the couch to be addressed later. I covered the clay that's exposed to the air with Vaseline and a piece of plastic. This keeps it from drying out and shrinking, which could distort the silicone once the mother mold and the weight of the mother mold gets on top of it. And this is the first time I've tried this trick, and it worked out really well, so it's something I'll use in the future for sure. If you rewind the video, you'll be able to see a small hole with exposed clay on the chin, and this is where the hands and the chin touched, and I just resculpted this area a little and filled it with silicone. Then I made the top part of the mother mold for the arms, and again I'll get into how I do this in the video about the mother mold. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, I'd like to invite you to take a look at my Patreon page. So for those of you who don't know, Patreon is a way for you to connect with me on a more personal level than what we can do here. Here, you are a passive viewer, unless you comment and share the video, of course, so please comment and share. But on Patreon, you can become an active participant. Patreon is a great platform where I can teach you personally, giving feedback on the sculpture you are working on at home. We can communicate over email or by video chat and talk about all things sculpture. And if you would like to get your hands on this sculpture, Patreon is the best way to do so. So if this sounds interesting, head over to my Patreon page. There is a link on the screen and as always in the description below. Consider hitting the thumbs up button and the red subscribe button to see more if you liked what you saw here today. To get notified when a new video comes out, click the little bell next to the red subscribe button. In the description below, you can find links to all my social media. Follow me there to see what I'm up to in the studio every day. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.